Welcome to the Growthink podcast. We're kicking off a new series here called Entrepreneur Unscripted, where we talk to successful entrepreneurs to learn more about their journey. On today's show, we have Vijay Kumar, the CEO of Neon Mango, and we're going to talk about how he went from side hustle to CEO. Vijay, welcome to the show.
Hey Tim, thanks for having me.
Hey, really glad that we have a chance here to talk about entrepreneurship and the journey from going from side hustle to CEO. I know it's not an easy endeavor, and there's a lot of risk, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain, a lot of emotion, some joy along the way. And I thought today on this show, we kind of get your story of
Sure.
what it takes to go through that. So just for starters, maybe let the folks know a little bit about who you are and about the amazing things you're doing with Neon Mango.
Yeah, everybody, I'm VJ. I've been a longtime entrepreneur, but I also, took a little bit of a hiatus from my entrepreneurial career to jump into leadership in Silicon Valley. And that was pretty sweet. I worked with some of the bigs out there, like Dell, EMC, Broadcom, VMware, and I was a leader in those businesses. And those companies pay you a heck of a lot of money. So my entrepreneurial instincts started to like they hibernated for a while. Um, but I bring this up because I have always identified as an entrepreneur, and so it was 10-year stint as an employee with some pretty big firms that pay pretty well that made that sense of entrepreneurism kind of fade for a while. But that said, always had it in me. And today, I am no longer working as an employee in Silicon Valley. I run my own tech startup called Neon Mango, and it's the future of autographs. I started this company with a couple of my really good friends, Charlie Hunnam and Ryan Hurst. You guys probably know them from shows like Sons of Anarchy or movies like Rebel Moon, et cetera, et cetera. But us three put our heads together and we just started ideating on what would be a cool technology to inject into the celebrity engagement space. So, long story short, we found this little niche in the autograph world where notable people like Charlie, et cetera, make a pretty good living just selling autographs. And we decided to jump into that business and be an innovator in that space. So, we launched Neon Mango in a beta about a year ago, and I've been running it part-time for most of that beta, but now full-time, which is, I think, what you're here to talk to me about
Yeah.
mostly, right, Tim?
Absolutely. And it's funny, I want to highlight a little bit about the always feeling like an entrepreneur, even when you're inside of a large organization, because
Yeah.
there's something about the thrill of it all and then the thrill of risk and knowing that you might have a little more gas in the tank when you work at a larger organization. It's kind of like they clip the claws a little bit, and it's like
Yeah,
you do what you got to do, but
totally.
that sense. So how did you just kind of deal with with that over a 10-year stretch, just the emotion of that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I started as a systems engineer about 10 years ago at a company called EMC, which is a really big storage hardware company. They were purchased by Dell, so that's how I started working for Dell. And I was a systems engineer, utilizing my computer science background to engineer infrastructure-based solutions for some of the biggest customers along the West Coast of the United States. But I came in as a rookie. I came in and I started working with all these really long these badass, excuse my language, but really really expert level engineers. And they were teaching me everything because I'm like, hey, I've never been in this business, but within 2 years of starting, I was promoted from just a standard systems engineer to the director of technology for the entire Western United States. And I a lot of these senior engineers were really upset with me because like why was this guy like going up the food chain so fast? And I credit that growth in that space to my entrepreneurial instinct.
Mhm.
I just I never played by the rules. I always broke the rules. And as an entrepreneur, I always felt like I knew how to break the rules in the right way. Because as entrepreneurs, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go out there and find a space that we enjoy, that interests us, and then figure out how to break the rules just a bit in order to find success that find space to grow your success. So I think that's one of the reasons I was still I was fulfilled by the work for a good amount of time is because I grew and I used my entrepreneurial mindset. But that industry started collapsing. That industry is still like collapsing on itself. It's taking away a lot of that creative space for the field. It needs to standardize because they were spending a lot on people like me to be creative, to be risk takers, to be relatively entrepreneurial. And as in any publicly traded company, you need to be able to have very predictable revenue streams. And the only way you do that is by standardizing. So they start contracting the
Yeah.
freedom there. And when I felt that is when I was like, Charlie, Ryan, what are we going to do? Because
So,
I no longer have this ability to flex the way I want to flex.
right. And when you're at an organization for any length of time, you kind of build a personal infrastructure around that, which is the 401k and the healthcare and the steady, 2 week paycheck and vacation time and all these things
Yeah.
that entrepreneurs largely don't have, or if they have them in different ways, or you're always playing for that big win in some cases. So it's as you're preparing, I think it's smart. You mentioned you started doing it part-time. So what does it look like for any would-be entrepreneur out there that's thinking, I have an idea, but I also have a full-time job. Like, what's
Yeah.
the smart path? How did you plan that out?
Well, I think that when you're doing anything part-time, um, it, it becomes growth has to become relatively organic and you just go with the flow. You take the Taoistic approach to building a business, which I'm not sure that that's really something that you can count on. I'm a big believer in burning the boats. You know this sentiment.
Hmm.
For those that don't, burning the boats is a reference to an old Spanish conquistador that said, "Hey, let's burn all these. We're here. Let's burn the boats, giving us no option for failure. We have to be successful here." I'm a strong believer in that, and I've actually had experience with burning the boats. And so I think that in the part-time experience where I was working full-time job, and I had a lot of responsibility for people, for revenue, for success of the business in general. And then I've got the side hustle going. It's failure was an option. For as long as I had the business in part-time mode, failure was an option because I had great pay, I had great benefits. Like, you know, they say that you get unlimited vacation, but no one really takes it. So there is something, there's a phenomenon that I believe is probably poorly defined, excuse me, with entrepreneurs that would say something along the lines that if you don't need to succeed, you won't. And so when I recently left my position, I said, I'm burning the boats and I'm gonna reconnect with the person I think that I am
Right.
and the journey that I want to be on, in order to inevitably find success.
Sure. Yeah. And kind of going back to having a full-time job, one of the great things for anyone out there is you get to learn on their dime.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. Um, but I also see that no matter where if you're out in a professional environment with intelligent people, you're going to learn. You're going to learn through
Right.
osmosis.
Yeah.
What you learn may or may not be applicable to an entrepreneur's life. Um, but I think that there's plenty of things that um, are ingrained into an employee that are intended to keep you from being an entrepreneur.
What would those things be? What would you say
Com-
those things would be?
Companies spend a lot of money to improve their attrition rate. They spend a lot of money because they know that when they lose me, they're going to have to they're going to have to pay a very significant amount of number to replace the skill and the IP that I brought into the company or that I acquired with my years of working there. So it's not that's not a secret.
Right.
Companies know, and and the employees know that the businesses will do anything to keep you there if you're a valuable part of the company. So that's what the golden handcuffs is. Like, hey, like don't leave now because your bonus is coming in 6 months. You
Right.
know what I mean? And then by the time you get that bonus, then they're like, don't leave now because your bonus is coming in 6 months.
Right.
They do that with, the vesting. When you vest RSUs with a tech company, the vesting is typically 4 years, but you're getting more vested. You're getting more stock uh, as every year that you're with a company. So no matter what, you always have stock left on the table that you have a 4-year vesting period with.
Yeah.
And so that's the notion is like, hey, we want to keep you here, VJ. We're going to make you wealthy over time. That's great. Um, but we're going to be really hard to turn away from. And so they do those things. And I also think that the other aspect of what you learn in big corporate America is not necessarily things that a gritty entrepreneur needs to do.
Sure. That's a good point.
Sometimes like
Point.
pulling enterprise level behaviors into a startup is the opposite thing of what you want to do because
Right.
the enterprise language, the Argoan enterprise is slow and arduous and filled with red tape. They're filled with lawyers that want to tell you to stop, to slow down. But an entrepreneur can't be that careful. You got to break. You got to break glass.
I love breaking the rules and breaking glass because all the big timers that we could sit here and list off, they all broke something along the road. Let's turn the corner here and talk a little bit about the support system that you need to jump ship. And what did that look like for you in your life? I know you mentioned you had two partners, two buddies that kind of,
Sure, sure.
but what else did
Well,
you have?
yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I had GrowThink.
Hmm. Okay, cool.
I don't know for all the listeners when Charlie Ryan and I first started Neon Mango, we worked with your organization GrowThink to help create all the models to help really understand what our business could look like once we were commercialized. So that you guys have have been a continual benefit to me as an entrepreneur. Um, and support for an entrepreneur goes well beyond just like, hey, I'll handle your accounting, I'll handle your legal
Right.
work, I'll handle your graphic design, da 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 da. When I think of support for an entrepreneur, I mean it's like, who's gonna give me a hug today? So
Yeah.
my wife,
Yeah.
100% my wife, who's a badass entrepreneur herself.
Great.
She's the co-host of the Judy Justice Show. She's won 2 Emmys. As she's done that, she's built this really amazing legal empire, and so she's a badass. But she's also like my biggest support, and I don't think without having her always there for me and saying just go do it, VJ, I don't think I would do it. I don't think I
That's
would.
that's amazing. Yeah, because entrepreneurship can be very lonely, right?
It's extremely lonely, extremely lonely. Yeah.
Like you're going to fall on your own sword multiple times a day. And kind of going back, not to tout our own horn, but why not? How important is it to have someone like us, GrowThink, to really get into the nitty gritty of the numbers? Because not every entrepreneur knows that side of just tearing apart the market research, the financial models, kind of playing around with that. Like, how important is it to have someone like an advisor in that regard?
Extraordinarily important. I think that I mean I think that what you guys brought to the table when I was developing like the actual business model for Neon Mango, I think that I think it should be a requirement for every entrepreneur that is actually trying to grow a medium to large business. Small mom and pop, like if you're trying to, just throw up a pop-up in your local neighborhood, sell some bagels, sell some coffee. I mean, I still think you should understand the demographic in that region. You should understand your competition, but there's a difference between doing something because you just have that passion for coffee or and doing something because, hey, I'm trying to build this business to exit.
Right.
I'm
Right.
trying to build this business to grow a medium to large size enterprise that has exit potential, which is what we are trying to do.
Right.
I think when I look at this business from that perspective, you guys have been, your team was just totally integral.
That's great.
It gave us a view, a perspective of our business that um, that validated what we thought it could be. Um, there's still a million miles to go before we get our company to where the financial model says we could bring it. But having an assumption, having an algorithm to do it that's based off of finances is really important. And growthing is that I would say you're the major thing, the major value that growthing brought to us was helping us with a really, really detailed financial model that I look at as a algorithmic approach to my business. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't start another business without a service like that. And from my perspective, I'd be contracting Growth Inc.
It's awesome. Thank you for that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
there's a moment in the entrepreneurial journey where the light bulb goes on and you're like, oh, I think there's an opportunity, some white space in the market. I think there's also a moment where that light bulb actually gets brighter than it once was.
Okay.
The light bulb's
Okay.
on, and then you're like, okay, I have this side hustle idea, or I'm going to start working on this separate thing. The light bulb's on, I see the white space, and then you kind of layer that over with financial models, market research, input, you name it, feedback from your friends and family, from your partners, and this light bulb's getting a little brighter. Was there a moment for you when that light bulb was so bright and the passion, the vision for what you're trying to create was so big that you're like, I cannot be here anymore. I now need to officially make
Hmm.
it jump. What does that look like?
You know what? I would say that using your light bulb analogy, I would say that it's a dimmer switch, right? One day it's super bright, one day the light's like totally gone, one day it's like so it's this spectrum of brightness.
Yeah.
And so there's been tons, tons of experiences in my entrepreneurial journey where the light's been so bright. I mean, the reason I really jumped ship, Tim, from like really comfortable employment and tech, um, was because I couldn't bat away this idea or this feeling that what we built was inevitable
Mm,
for for our industry. What we built is inevitable.
yes.
And if we built it and I was like, yeah, none of us were really willing to like go full time, it would never come to fruition. I mean, Charlie and Ryan are full-time actors. They've got amazing careers in that. Like, and it was always known that they're going to still continue pursuing those careers. Um, but for me, it was just like, man, if it's not me, it's nobody.
Yeah.
And this thing has to get a real shot. I don't think businesses have a real shot until you're willing to say, F it, I'm in.
Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to like the single moment, um, I don't think it's fair for us to communicate to fledgling entrepreneurs or new or like aspirational entrepreneurs that there is a moment
Mhm.
because that's not what being an entrepreneur is. Being an entrepreneur is saying, I'm going to climb. I see six different mountains on the horizon. There's that little one, there's that medium one, there's that tiny one, and then there's Mount Everest. And being an entrepreneur is saying, I'm climbing to the top of Mount Everest. Oh, it's going to be a pain in the ass of a journey. Along the ways, you're going to see the most beautiful sights in the world. And when you're there, you're going to have accomplished the most difficult thing you could do. And that's what being an entrepreneur is. It's choosing that journey. You could choose to climb the hill or the this like the one without great vistas, and it'll be comfortable. You won't have many great vistas. It won't be as difficult. It's always difficult. Being an employee is difficult, right? It's not easy street, but that's what being an entrepreneur is. It's deciding that you're going to take the journey, knowing that there's going to be some beautiful vistas along the way, but then also knowing that it's going to be hard. It's going to be, you're climbing the tallest mountain for the sake of climbing it, because
Right.
that's who you are.
Yeah.
And
That's
so when it comes to a bright light, the bright light are those vistas where you take a break and you check out, the world from 35,000 feet. And the dim light is when there's a
really,
blizzard and you can't see anything, but you're still going. I have to tell myself that every day, that I will see the beautiful views, but I'm also going to see nothing sometimes. I'm also going to like feel like I should turn back. But when I burnt the boats, I meant it. And if I, I really believe that what the business I'm building is has so much potential and is going to be seen in the industry as, the the next best innovation that it's experienced. But I also know that it's going to be a tough journey, and you got to die trying in a way.
yeah. And there's a lot of wisdom in that, which is it's going to be tough. I know that, like right off the bat. So
Yeah,
I have to prepare myself mentally. I have to have the support system around me. So when those times do get tough, it's not like all doom and gloom. I have enough wisdom to kind of pull me out of it. I also know that it is the journey, not the destination. It truly is the journey,
yeah,
not
yeah,
the destination. And then having somewhat of a calling, having somewhat of it's going to happen. I need to bring this about, kind of like what you're saying. Like
yeah,
I'm raising my hand and saying I'm going to pick myself here,
yeah,
bring that out.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, totally.
what would you say is like thus far in the journey? I know you've been an entrepreneur prior, but this time around, if you were to condense it maybe down to like three core findings or learnings, personal learnings from this time around, like what are three things that like really stick out to you about your entrepreneurial journey? Maybe it's character or like new discoveries. What are some of those things?
Going at it alone is really, really difficult. And if you can find partnership in business that you feel that you trust, you should you should pick up a partner. You should find someone that makes 1 + 1 greater than 2. A force multiplier of another entrepreneur is probably could be the most significant value for a new entrepreneur or an entrepreneur in general. Doing something by yourself is exhausting. And so I would say allow our human condition to want to be with people and do things with people, regardless if you're an introvert or not. Um, Let that take shape and allow people to help you grow what you want to grow. I really think that businesses blossom when they have enough energy to do so. And so energy, you could inject energy into your business in a short amount of time or a very long period of time. If you want to inject enough energy into your business to make it blossom, you're going to have more than one person doing it. If you want it to blossom sooner than later, excuse me. You can still do it by yourself, but it's just going to take longer. So I think that's number one, partnership. Number two is, every entrepreneur talks about Reid Hoffman, and if you wait too long, You shouldn't wait too long. Or release something embarrassing. I think that is probably um, one of the most important things to do as a business person. That said, I don't think there's anybody out there that will ever release something that embarrasses them.
Right.
So I think there's this like this idea that like, yeah, just get stuff out, be an entrepreneur,
Hmm.
put something out that somebody can give you feedback on. It doesn't have to be monetized. You can put something out, like if you have a business idea, put out a survey. Put out a survey and say, hey, people, do you want this thing?
Right.
And that's that can be part of your product release. And that's not waiting too long. And you don't have to be embarrassed about a landing page with a simple form that says, hey, do you want this thing? So that Reid Hoffman quote that every entrepreneur knows is a I think it's a little too, it feels too finite. I think that's the infinite idea of an entrepreneur. Always do things and always bring something new to the market, whether it's monetizable or not. Do like if you're like selling fishing lures, just like start a newsletter about fishing and make that the thing you offer while you're still figuring out how to make the best fly. So those are the types of things. Those are probably the two primary things that I think about is always being fresh, always putting stuff out there, not waiting for perfection. Perfection is never there. Remember, this is a journey. So whatever you think your business is today, it is not going to be that tomorrow. My business is changing as we speak, Tim. I can't see what it's changing right now, but as soon as I get off this podcast with you, it'll be slightly different. I don't know how to quantify that, but everything is obviously changing. If it's not changing, it's dying. So, I think those two sentiments, if I could leave it at two, those would be my two favorites.
Okay, so I think there's plenty here, but I do want to recap a little bit, which is I love the concept of partnership. I've built a lot of businesses on the backs of partnerships because 1 + 1 can equal 5. You need more relationships and more reach. It's so important. It's someone to pick you up and pull you in the dark times, and you could do that for them as well. I love this idea of don't wait. And there's many that can mean a lot of things like testing, always bringing something new to the market. Even a survey could be something as simple as asking your friends, but just putting something out there, and most certainly not waiting for perfection because that's very elusive and you're never going to reach it. So kind of putting that into a bubble and saying, here, entrepreneurs, if you can just hear nothing more than these words, this is going to set you on the right path. Is there a very common landmine that you see entrepreneurs step on time and time again? And if you think there is like one where you're like, this is a biggie, and I've experienced this, like what would that be as we kind of round this out?
I think that the landmines that you always will run into as an entrepreneur is this idea that you need to spend money to make money.
Mm,
As an entrepreneur, everyone can attest that no matter where you are online in the world, someone is trying to sell you something that promises it will make your business succeed. And as entrepreneurs, we're highly motivated, right? We're highly motivated people. So if you come to me and go, VJ, like if you buy this $100 guitar pick and put it in your pocket, like your business is going to be successful. Those landmines are everywhere and they're really hard to avoid. I find myself, oh, wow, this guy's company says I can train my digital marketing strategies with AI and it will be like gangbusters successful. Not the case. It's not the case. Everybody's just trying to sell me something because I'm a highly motivated person. So landmine for every entrepreneur and it's everywhere. We're in a landmine field. It's just everybody's going to be asking us for our money and having a very specific strategy on deciding how to spend your money is really important. It's really important. Otherwise, you'll just spend it. You will believe the salesperson. You will believe that this is what you need to make your business successful because that's all you're thinking about every day is how do I make my business successful? So just be really careful with that.
I love that. That is so sobering because it's true, and the internet is just full of charlatans, and some may be well-meaning. They just can't deliver what they say, and they only could take the money. Um, okay, so
They're building their business
yeah,
too, and I'm their customer. You're their customer. Entrepreneurs are their customer, and we just happen to be highly motivated to like find a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet. You just have to figure out how to get a customer to give you $1 for something that costs you less than $1.
okay. Final question here.
Yeah.
If we meet in 5 years from today,
Hmm.
what statement would you like to be true?
That I made people happy through my entrepreneurism.
Very noble. I love it.
I know. You know what? It might sound like stupid or not real enough for an entrepreneur because we have to think in quantifiable, ways all the time. But I just can't. Um, I know as a person that I need like a greater purpose in my entrepreneurism. And it doesn't mean I'm delivering water filters around the world, even though I do have a part in delivering water filters, and that's not what I'm doing as a business. But I think that every entrepreneur needs not just a vision or a mission that's attached to this business thing that you're creating, this entity you're creating. You need a mission or a vision for yourself. And I think that if I'm successful in creating happiness through my entrepreneurism, then regardless of how much money we make, I will feel insanely successful. So I hope
Uh,
in 5 years it will be known that my entrepreneurism made people happy.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, I would like to commend you for being an entrepreneur and taking the risks out there for all of us. And the country is built on the back of small business owners and people that had ideas and dreams and visions, and those small businesses turn into very big businesses. So it is very commendable what you're doing, and we look forward to the journey. We will put all the your information and links to everything down in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining, and
Yeah.
like, comment, subscribe if you're new to this. Vijay, you're the man. So
What
good
is
to
there
have
a button up here?
yeah, there's a button around here somewhere.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim. Like I said, these things are really great because they're cathartic, and talking about how, entrepreneurs are not supposed to be vulnerable, but everyone is. Everyone is. So it's cool to be able to come up here and talk about all the cool stuff we're doing and all the terrifying stuff we're doing. I hope we can all be I hope as a community we all just keep on coming together and taking care of each other. I think that's an amazing way to make the world a better place.
Wonderful. Thanks, Vijay. Appreciate it.
All right, Tim.